This is Thomas Artivani, founder of the Artivani Approach to on-camera mastery for writers, actors, directors, and creative producers. There's been a question asked, how do I memorize my material quickly and effectively? Good question. The obvious way into this is, hey, if you're going to come into a process and you're scatterbrained, you're going to potentially sabotage the entire effort. What you want to be able to do before you meet the material is get out of your own way, wind yourself with the present, and open yourself up. Get hungry and curious about what's on the page, so that that first engagement with the material is a deep first impression. With that first deep impression, you've really set yourself up for success here, because the next thing that you do, if you're a trained actor, is you take that journey through the eyes of that character out into that world that that writer's created, and you experience that material. Now you've given yourself another advantage, a deep experience. Now, from that experience, you're going to make choices. You're going to make choices on how the character feels, what they most want for themselves, and the action that they're taking. That understanding gives justification and purpose for what's on the page. The next thing you do is you go through it and you find the major transitions in the scene, and you then break the scene down into beats, bite-sized chunks, blocks of information that you can now begin to get very specific with. Get the phrasing down, memorize the material within the beats, within each beat. Now, what we're doing here is not all associative. A lot of times you're taught these memorization techniques that deal with associations. Well, here you're acting, so you need to input the material neutrally so that you can action determines outcome. And so use the visual cortex as a basis for you to input the information properly. So, a couple of ways to go about this. First and most obvious way is to see the lines in your mind's eye, in your imagination. You know, like the news that's delivered in Times Square. You know, you see it, the news sort of reveal itself. Well, let that newsreel run through your head in a similar way. Let the sentences, so you pull the sentences from the piece of material, you let the piece of material move through your mind's eye, and then you write the material. Pull the material, see the material, write the material. And so as you write the material, it's being written out in your mind's eye. Everything is supporting the visual cortex in terms of strengthening its responsibility in this memorization process. So if that's a little complicated for you, you can see the material in the mind's eye and then you say the material. The discipline is seeing it in the mind's eye and then saying it. Seeing it and saying it. You're going to want to say it first and use the ears to give an interpretive value to it, but there's no quality memorization when you start using the ears to verify memorization. Big mistake. A lot of traps come along with that. See the sentence in the mind's eye and then say the sentence. And now you're putting things in an order in which when you move into action, when it comes time to do your work, that material is going to be there for you. Because as you take action through the present, the material that you've memorized has to be in the visual cortex to be discovered in the present and used in the present. Speak when you need to. So, okay, see it, say it. Even when you're going to rehearsals and there's a line that hasn't been inputted yet, which is fine, but when you realize there's a place in your rehearsal where there's a weak point, you immediately see the line in your mind's eye, say it, see it, say it. The next opportunity that you can see it in your mind's eye and then write it out. See it, write it out. See it in your mind's eye, write it out. See it in the mind's eye, write it out. Or as you write it out, see it in your mind's eye. And here you're giving crossover verifications through different sensory inputs. The next thing that's really going to assist you as you go through the material and memorize it in that context, you can also take a look at the other person's lines, because those other person's lines are the basis for a lot of the reason you're saying your lines. And so when you familiarize yourself with the other character's lines, you're picking up and remembering the stimulus as to why you're speaking. This assists memorization to a huge degree. In your script analysis, though, in the early phases before you get to rehearsal, you break the piece down into those major transitions. But then there's another step, especially in creating continuity for your on-set experience. There's minor transitions within those beats, within the beats. When you identify the minor transition, a minor transition might be just a glance and a thought and a look, right? And within that, there might be two minor transitions. With that, those minor transitions really look at the minutia of the scene, and when there's lines being spoken within that minutia, or lines being set up to be spoken within that minutia, you've now identified a more nuanced aspect of your responsibility, which then gives rise to express yourself with whatever line is there. Those minor transitions are triggers for any lines that are within the beat. That really, it's so powerful. And not only that, by honoring minor transitions, a lot of times you're reminding yourself to create reflection points, which is another part of script analysis. Woo! That's a lot, huh? DM me if you have any questions about this.